What's up, YouTube? It is your boy JB, and we are here today with the review for Games People Play, Season 2, Episode 9. The episode was titled Truth and Consequences, you guys. So, before we go ahead and get into this review, if you guys are watching this video or any other on the channel and you guys are not yet subscribed to the channel, then I'm going to need you guys to do me a big, huge favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. Do me a big, huge favor by subscribing to the channel, liking the video. You guys, please like the videos. This YouTube algorithm is bullshit. Like it's the worst, right? So anybody who's watching these videos, just stop and like the video for me. That helps me a lot. That'll let YouTube know that you guys watch me and they'll promote me. And turn on your notifications, you guys. And with that out the way, you guys, let's go ahead and discuss Games People Play. So next week is going to be the season finale of Games People Play. All right, you guys, so the episode, we see Nia. You guys remember in the last episode that Nia went to that foundation meeting, right? And that, Chris had pointed her out. So Nia took off running, right? So Nia went home and she got in the house. As she got in the house, there's a ding, 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 a knock at the door, right? So Nia goes into a dresser. I thought she was finna pull out I thought she was strapped. Nia, there was more than one person that was after you. So I don't necessarily know what that pepper spray was gonna do, but thank God it was Terrence, right? And Terrence said he noticed her when she ran out, so he followed in behind her. But he's like, Nia, you are playing a dangerous game, right? And she tells him, I am a little bit scared, but I'm not going to cower down to the foundation, right? So then Nia, she calls Ruff, right? And she's telling him, the foundation is onto her and that, they need to meet up and talk, right? He's like, oh, how about I come over to your place tomorrow morning? She says, okay, I'll make breakfast, right? So then we move over and we see Marcus. So Marcus is in Eden's office, right? So it's contract negotiation times for Marcus, right? His contract with the Vipers is almost up. So it's time for him to renegotiate, right? So Eden was like, okay, well, how about we give you $45 million? He said, $45 million for 4 years? He said, no. He's like, we about to go to the playoffs. She says, okay, well, how about this? Let's wait until, because there's another team that was playing, right? And what kind of basketball is this? The playoffs. Oh, playoffs. I'm tripping. I'm thinking about to make it to, okay, yeah. Cause their record. It depends on what their record was. Cause I was like, the playoffs, depending on what their record was. So, okay, that's right. So yeah, so there's another team that has to play. There are two teams that are playing that night, right? So the team that they want to win the game. Let me see. So there are two teams playing. I can't remember the names of the teams. I think it was like I forgot what the name of the teams were, you guys. But one team's loss if this one team loses, then the Vipers goes to the playoffs, right? So she says once that happens, then we can definitely, renegotiate your contract, right? And, after that, she asked him to join her and her father for brunch. So we're going to keep going, you guys. So we see Kareem. So Kareem is hanging out with Jamal, right? So Jamal takes it upon himself to pull out this medical bill for over $80,000, right? And, Jamal is talking about the fact that he doesn't have enough money to cover this bill. He's reached out, he's talked to the hospital about them helping him pay it, but you have to have a job and you have to have a checking account in order to, take care of that kind of a bill, which is a complete lie because my grandmother used to have bills and, my grandmother was old fashioned and didn't have a checking account, but go off, Jamal, right? So Jamal is wanting Kareem to help him pay that, bill, right? And Kareem was like, well, you know what? I got to talk to Quanisha first. He was like, Quanisha? He was like, yeah, that's my lady. We are about to get married and I need to run things by her. And I was like, exactly. I'm with you, Kareem. So let's pause here and move forward. See MJ and Layla. So MJ and Layla met up with each other, right? And they're discussing Nia and the fact that Nia is so consumed with the foundation, right? And at this point, Layla is starting to second guess a lot of the things that she has, right? You know, the apartment, her getting this acting gig, right? And MJ's like, you know, you got that based off your own talent. What talent? Because we saw Layla as she was auditioning for that role, and her acting was not great at all. So I don't know what talent you're discussing, MJ, but you know, being a supportive friend, I'm here for it, but what talent? So then, you know, she's saying, you know, well, what if what Nia said is true, right? That, you know, she's starting to think that maybe Jason is the reason that she got, you know, all the gigs that she's getting, right? But he's still, once again, trying to, you know, make her feel good about herself, right? And I respect that, but you also got to be real and honest with your friends, right? So then we see Quanisha and Kareem. They're arguing with each other, right? Because Quanisha is telling Kareem, absolutely not. Like, we need to pay for this wedding. And number two, I think Jamal is full of shit. So absolutely not. Because she says she thinks that Jamal is trying to play Kareem, which I agree with Quanisha. I think Jamal is trying to play Kareem. So then we see Nia, right? So Nia has Ruff over to her crib, right? She's made breakfast. He presents her with a cup of coffee. So she's like, oh, you know what? Let me add a little bit of creamer to this coffee, right? So she opens up the, you know, the top, throws the creamer in there, and instead of the creamer sinking to the bottom, it just sat on the top and then it started bubbling up. She said, you're trying to poison me just like you did Eric. He said Eric was a good guy, but he got a little too close to the foundation just like you are, right? So he pulls his gun out on her, and in the nick of time, the cops swarm in to arrest Ruff. I was like, thank God. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, ooh, Nia, close call. But he said, this is all for the greater good. So it's for the greater good, but you're about to take your ass to jail. Okay. So let's move forward, you guys. So we're over at Marcus's crib, right? So Romello, Kareem, looks like the whole entire team is there, right? They're watching this game. And at one point they are really excited because I guess there's a player on this team that he might not be the best player, or I don't know. He might not be the best, or he might be a good player. I don't know what it is, but they were cheering because at this point it looks like they were about to clinch that seat for the playoffs. But we'll talk about it a little later, right? So then we see Nia. Nia, she went over to MJ's crib, right? And he told Nia, you know, he had been cleaning up and he found he found Eric's sunglasses. So he gave them to her, right? So he said, you know, Nia, when it came down to the foundation stuff, the only reason why I went and got into the foundation was because of you, to help you out. I never thought or expected for this to come in between our friendship, right? So they both apologize to each other, right? They make amends. So then he tells her, you know, and I found these big ass, checkered ass shorts that belong to Eric. You can take these and get them out. So when he's holding them, there's this little chip that fell out of the thing. It fell out of him, right? He was like, do you want me to get rid of it? She's like, no, I'll take it and I'll discard of it, right? So I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, she still doesn't trust MJ. So we move over to Quanisha. So Quanisha has gone down to the hospital, right? She's trying to find this bill, you know, trying to see, hey, is Jamal telling the truth, or is Jamal in fact playing Kareem like she thinks he is, right? So the lady at first, the nurse didn't want to give her any information about the bill. I was kind of confused, right? I know that doctor-patient confidentiality, right? HIPAA laws, right? But does HIPAA also apply to, you know, medical bills? I don't know. That part I don't know. But the woman was reluctant at first to give her the information, and then she's like, I'm his daughter. Then she asked her to see her ID. She's like, you guys don't have the same last name. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm not his daughter? But come to find out, Jamal's bill was paid, and it's been paid because Jamal got amnesty. I was like, ain't that about a blip? So we're gonna pause here, you guys, and we're gonna move back over to Marcus and the guys. So they're watching this game. Now, at one point in the game, a fight broke out, right? So when we move back over to them, morale has really gone down. And at this point, it looks like the chances of the Vipers going to the playoffs are done. And unfortunately, the Vipers won't be going to the playoffs. And they feel that the reason that they're not going to the playoffs is because the team that they were going to face in the playoffs didn't want to face them in the playoffs. But hey, unfortunately, the Viper season has ended, right? So then we move over and we see the young lady. Now, you guys remember in last week's episode, the young lady that went to talk to Layla, we see her as she's outside of Jason's, camp, his office, protesting, right, about what Jason did to her, right? And then we see Layla. She finally joined her. I'm like, thank you, Layla. Stand up for what's right, right? So then this woman comes up to Layla saying, so were you abused by Jason? She says, I was abused by him. She said, when did this happen? Layla says, when I was in high school. And the woman says, well, what took you so long to come out? I was with Layla. Have you ever been abused? Okay, then if you haven't, don't ask a person why it took them so long to come forward. I really do hate when people say that. What took you so long to come forward? You do realize that people have shame and guilt sometimes for things that happen to them, right? So lady, go to hell. So then we see Nia, right? So remember, I told you guys that little chip that fell out of, Eric's shorts. Nia has attached it to her computer, right? And we see as somehow she tapped into this camera, this surveillance camera, and we see the Secretary of State, because Nia said it later in the episode, Secretary of State, later in the scene actually, Secretary of State as well as Jason. So they have been trying to bury all these things that happened with Jason in his past, right? And the reason that they've been trying to do this is because what they're trying to do is groom Jason to become the president one day. I was like, I know you lying. So now what they want to do is they want to vilify Layla and that other young lady. I'm like, oh my God. But you know what? That probably happens more than we actually. So we see Marcus and he's talking to his therapist, right? And, she's asking him about his relationship with Eden. And Marcus is telling his therapist that with his relationship with Eden, he just wants peace. He doesn't need love. I'm like, okay, I guess, whatever that means. Didn't really understand it, right? But the more he kept talking, she's like, so it does kind of sound like you love her. He says it also sounds like peace. I guess. So then we see Quanisha. So Quanisha is talking to Kareem. And she's telling Kareem that, she went down to the hospital to see if Jamal was telling the truth about his hospital bills, right? And she tells him that Jamal's bills was paid. And Kareem was like, how was his bill paid? She said he got amnesty a while back. And because he said he doesn't have insurance, but she said he has amnesty. And, he questioned that, right? And Quanisha's like, I wouldn't lie to you, Kareem. And she gave him the bill showing that it was paid. And he got upset. And rightfully so, right? You're trying to build this relationship with your ain't shit daddy. And your ain't shit daddy is still trying to use you, right? So then we see Layla. So Layla, she's on set, right? And she's getting ready to go to her trailer. But her trailer was locked, right? So she went up to one of the young, I would say a PA, right? And she's like, why can't I get into my, my trailer? So she gets on a walkie-talkie. Layla is here and she can't get into her trailer. She's like, no, don't do that. She's how does this work? So she took the walkie-talkie. She's like, why can't I get into my trailer? So they tell her that her role has been recast because of the network, right? So then we see Marcus. So Marcus is having brunch with Eden and her father. And, her father is trying to basically smooch Marcus, right? Giving him delicacies from where his mother is from, delicacies that Marcus has never ate. And Marcus like, but where's the bathroom? So Marcus leaves to go toward the bathroom. And when he walks by the kitchen, who is there? Brenda is there. And he's like, Brenda, what are you doing here? She's like, I didn't want to tell him it's Vanessa. She says, because he said, I thought you said you were going to get deported. But we're going to pause here, you guys. And we're going to move forward because she told him to go talk to them in there, right? So let's pause and move forward. So then we see MJ. So he's having dinner with Andre, right? So MJ asks Andre, what happens if someone wants to leave the foundation, right? And Andre's like, I thought you were in this with us. He says, I am. He said, I just want to know what people's exit strategy is, right? So Andre says to him that when it comes to the foundation, that when it comes to the foundation, that if you try to leave, they'll release your initiation tapes. And I'm like, the initiation tapes? So what do you have to do for initiation? Inquiring minds would love to know, right? All right, you guys. So I just talked about this when Marcus when he went to the restaurant. So let's see. So Marcus, once he went back, after he saw Brenda, right? He went back to where Eden and her father was, and he asked him, "Why the hell is my old housekeeper working for you guys?" Right? So Eden's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He says, "Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, your daddy knows what I'm talking about, right?" So Marcus got upset, and he was like, "You know what? I'm out of here." And he was like, "Marcus, don't leave." He's like, "Nah, I'm gonna leave on my own free will before I'm escorted out by the cops," right? So once Marcus leave, Eden asked her dad what is going on. And she says, because Brenda has worked for us for years. So why is Marcus now saying that she worked for him? Well, the reason that Brenda worked for Marcus is because her dad orchestrated that, right? Then her dad has basically orchestrated everything. He orchestrated her working for them. Then when, Vanessa ran over Kalinda and they covered it up, he helped with that. And he helped get Vanessa out of town. I was like, oh, wow. Wow. What a tangle web we weave, right? So then we move over. So we see Nia. So Nia's talking to Terrence, right? And she's telling Terrence that, with that footage that she has of Jason, she's tried to give it to every news outlet. But at this point, no one wants to touch it. He's like, why don't you put it on one of those, those little websites that for people who believe in this kind of stuff. She's like, that's not going to work, because even if I do that, the foundation can still have a way of, getting it taken down, right? So he says, well, you know what? I know a guy who may be able to help you, right? So we're going to see that, right? So then we see Jamal. So Jamal is at Kareem's crib, right? Kareem is laying into Jamal, rightfully so. And he's like, you know what? If you want the money, man, take the money. But if you take the money, you and I were done. And then we see him later in the episode, and he told Quanisha that, he took the money. And, she was like, don't even worry about that, right? The wedding. We can have a small wedding. Hell, we can go to the courthouse. Just wait until next week, until when I have some money, so I can go get me a dress, because I still got to look nice at the courthouse, right? So then we see Layla. So Layla is at her apartment, right? And, people are like, I stand with Layla James, right? You guys remember the person who showed her the apartment in the episode when she got the apartment, right? Well, that person came up to her and was like, yeah, baby, I need to show you an apartment. She's like, what do you mean you need to show my apartment? Like, I have enough money from the pilot episode to cover the next couple of months of rent. And the person was like, yeah, that was contingent on you having an employment. She says, but I have money. Yeah, that was a discount. There was a contingency of you having employment. So she got 1 week to get out of that apartment. I'm like, ugh. I knew it was too good to be true. Knew it was. But that's the episode, you guys. Let me know what you guys thought about it. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell button so you guys are notified when I drop anything else. Share the video. And until the next one, stay safe. There, you guys take care of yourselves. Remember to wash your hands, wear a mask, socially distance, be blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next